All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. We're sitting here. It is late August. We're right about to turn the corner into September, and we've got a lot to talk about this month on the fishing report. We're going to talk about that summer to fall transition that we're coming into right now. I know it doesn't feel like it here in Arizona. It's been so hot, but fall is coming, and the fishing is going to get a major shakeup here in a couple weeks. Before we go any further, I want to let you guys know that this video is brought to you by Hatch Toyota in Show Low, Arizona. As far as prices, inventory, the people that work there, they are the best dealership that you guys will ever deal with, and it's worth the drive up to Show Low if you're in the market for any vehicle, especially a Toyota Tundra like I drive. And also, before we get into the report, make sure that you guys are liking this video, subscribe to the channel. Tell a friend if you like what you're seeing. I'm always open to any comments or suggestions for the channel. So anyways, let's move into this fishing report. We're sitting here, and as we're moving into this next month, things are getting tougher by the day, I would say, as a whole here in Arizona. It's been a good, stable summer of fishing, but as we roll into the fall, the bite changes a lot, and we're seeing very hit or miss fishing. Like every day is a different day on all of our lakes. I've been on Roosevelt, I've been on Saguaro, I've had some buddies over at Bartlett, Pleasant, I've been on Canyon. So I've got some reports from all of the lakes. And one day it's going to be really good. The next day it's going to be potentially pretty tough. So that's one thing to remember. No matter what lake you're fishing right now here in Arizona, whatever happened yesterday, happened yesterday. Today is going to be a different day, and tomorrow is going to be a different day again. And I always harp on this, but especially when you get into those times of year where the bite's changing, we're talking about what we're trying to do is predict what the fish are going to do next. Because if we're going off of what's been working, you're gonna be in for more tough days than not if you try to do what worked for you last time you were on the water. It's important to know what the current water conditions are, especially, as we're wrapping up this monsoon season. I've seen, especially like up at Roosevelt, one day the water's clear, the next day you get some runoff and it gets dirty in certain areas. So that's really important. But as far as, how you've been catching them, treat every day like a new day when you get out of the water. And I guess we'll start there. We'll start up at Roosevelt because that's been my favorite place to fish all summer long. The water's dirtied up a lot in a lot of areas. You can still find clear water mid-lake, but if you're fishing, either end, especially the salt 5 miles of the lake, from where the river runs in 5 miles to the west, you're going to run into a lot of dirty water. And that's okay. You just don't want to fish water that is freshly dirtied. And what I mean by that, and this goes for all of our Arizona lakes and all lakes in general, dirty water is fine. You can catch a lot of good fish out of dirty water, but that water has to have been dirty for a little while. When it first dirties up from being clear, that's a major shock to the fish, and it takes some time to get used to it and to settle in. Those fish might have been sitting down in 20 feet in their summertime areas. That water dirties up, they're going to want to move shallower because that sunlight is not going to penetrate near as deep anymore. Those fish don't like to live deep when the water gets dirty. So those fish are going to make a migration. They're going to move shallower, and it takes some time to settle in, get where they need to be. And that's one thing I definitely noticed. I was catching them really good in like 20 feet. Over the last couple months, especially in those waters that got dirty, I'm catching a lot more fish in that dirty water now in like 5 to 12. So a lot shallower. Those fish kind of slid up, and you can still catch them, but you've got to make adjustments. And I would say just across the board, what happens on these Arizona lakes, and I was talking about it with a buddy the other day, is the summertime, they love that 15 to 22 foot zone. I talk about it a lot. They get in that mid-depth zone. That's where there's a lot of bait. That's where they're comfortable water temperature-wise in the summertime. Of course, there's always some shallower and there's always some deeper, but there's a huge number of fish that get in 15 to 22 feet. And all Arizona lakes, this is how it goes. And then as that summer transitions to fall, what happens is those fish get out of this zone, and some push really shallow and some push really deep. So by the time you get into like October, you've got fish crushing topwaters, and then you got fish that you're catching deep on spoons and drop shots in like 30, 40, 50 feet. There's still some fish left in that in-between zone, but not nearly as many. So all of our lakes, these are 5 baits that I'm going to be relying on to catch those really shallow fish and those fish that begin to move a little bit deeper too. You're going to see those spots, those points, those humps, those ledges on all of our lakes that were so good all summer long. They're going to start drying up. And it's hard to leave that because you've been doing so well all summer long in those zones, on those same spots all summer. As they start to fizzle out, you can stick on them for a little bit, but soon, here in the next couple weeks, it's going to be time to pick up from these areas and move to some new ones. And one thing everybody likes about this time of year is the topwater bite. Really, really opens up. So a couple of my favorite topwater bites here. A little Berkley Chopo. This is a 90. This is like my favorite one right here. I love that 90 size. I like the bigger ones. I might have even talked about the bigger ones in the last video, but as the bass get up into that super shallow water and start chomping shad, this thing's just such a breeze to fish. Catches big ones, catches little ones, everything in between. So that Chopo 90, I love that. And the other great thing is you cover so much water. Like with a popper or a walking bait, you've got to actually take the time to work the bait. Well, the Chopo, you can just cover water. And we're looking for these areas that these fish are first moving to, that they're first getting to, where some of the shad maybe are getting pushed up. That's a good way to cover water and find those areas. And just the same deal there is this buzzbait. This is a half-ounce buzzbait right here. It's got kind of a translucent shad skirt, but it's got kind of a scale pattern on it too. And this is a weird deal, but the fish you'll actually start noticing now through the rest of the fall, or as we get into the fall, they don't turn down dragonflies. You know, in that shallow, clear water, you'll see a lot of bass coming up and actually eating dragonflies. As crazy as it sounds, I know a lot of you have seen it. Nothing matches it better than a buzzbait, and having a scale pattern on that buzzbait, to me, makes it look kind of dragonfly-like. So, Chopo, buzzbait on those tougher days when they're not committing to the topwater. You know, maybe it's for whatever reason, it's high pressure, something like that. And you'll have days where you go out and you miss your first 5 bites on topwater. You're like, man, what is going on? Go to a soft jerk bait. This is a power jerk shad from Berkley, 5-inch. You can throw it on a bait caster or spinning, but the soft jerk bait's a great alternative. Rig it weightless, weedless, so like a 4 or 5/0 extra wide gap hook. Cast it into these same areas and twitch it. This is also a great bait for those fish that are in open water chasing shad. And you'll see that this time of year too. Just fish that are in open water, cruising, busting on the surface. No better bait than a soft jerk bait. All of our lakes. And then when it comes to slowing down, you know, sometimes you still have to slow down. I mentioned how some of those fish will go deeper. For those of you that are trying to still wait out the last little bit of the summertime bite on some of our favorite summertime spots, this right here, fatty bottom hopper from Berkley. I throw this on a Magnum shaky head, and you can see how much bigger of a worm. This is a regular bottom hopper, and this is the fatty bottom hopper. Much bigger profile, gets big bites. I actually caught almost a 7-pounder on this thing last week, and went out again yesterday and caught quite a few fish on it. So for whatever fish are hanging up in those areas still, a worm to me, fish are always eating shad in our lakes, and they're always eating crawfish. I think right now I'm seeing more eat shad. Shad is a really big deal, especially if you're up at Roosevelt. Lake Pleasant, they're eating both. But Bartlett, you know, eating a ton of shad. This is a bigger worm. A worm that looks a lot more like a shad profile than a jig. A jig's going to match a craw really well, of course. Well, a worm has that slender bait fish profile. So that thing to me is getting some big bites. And then when you have to slow down and drop shot, of course, you know, some type of morning dawn. This is a Berkley bottom hopper. Works really, really well. This is the rod and the bait and the rig, the drop shot that never leaves the front deck of your boat. You got it every single month. Every single month in my report, you're probably going to see me with this talking about a drop shot. Maybe not always this color, but I like this morning dawn. It works all year, but I like it through the summer. As we get into the winter a little bit more, and the conditions change, the seasons change, sometimes I go to more natural colors. But right now, this pink is still the best color for me if I'm going to be throwing a drop shot. So overall, that's kind of the whole thing. It's not so much a lake-specific deal this month as much as I just want to kind of promote not being stuck in fishing the way you fished all summer long. Be looking for that new stuff. Don't be afraid to get up on the bank and look really, really shallow And then at the same time, as we get into, move later into September, October, November, we're going to start talking about fishing really deep again. But do not die out there in 20 feet. Don't die on the sword trying to catch them on those same spots you caught them all summer. Look for your new stuff. Pick up your top waters and start covering water. And it's just that it's one of those things. September's a tough month. And I fished all over the country in September. Arizona is one of the better fall states. We don't get hit with this super hard fall turnover like you do in a lot of southern lakes and eastern lakes. So that's one thing we're really lucky for. Arizona is a very good state to fish in the fall, in my opinion. The turnover is not that severe. And I don't know, I seem to catch them pretty good in the fall. I really look forward to it. And of course, we all look forward to the weather just cooling off and getting out of that summertime heat. So that's all I got for you guys this week. Don't forget, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And thanks again for watching. We'll see you here in the next video next week.